I'm not sure why we haven't talked about this author more, but I'm glad I'm talking about it now. I read The Institute by Stephen King in 2024. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars on Goodreads, and I wrote this review after reading. I feel like I've read a fair amount of Stephen King, and I always find that the ones I like are a little on the fringe. I was a massive fan of the Dark Tower series, and my other fave is probably The Regulators, which I don't know if a lot of people connected with because it was kind of a B-side for Desperation. This book feels a lot like that in the way that I heard zero hype for it, but I really enjoyed it. I think I greatly like the gravity that King gives children. And his main character here in Luke Ellis seems to be a perfect fit for his preferred particular style. Luke is precocious and brilliant, oppressed and lovable, powerful and imprisoned. He's a perfect Stephen King child protagonist. I was hooked when I read about the Minnesota connections in the synopsis, and it's hearkening to a certain school for gifted youngsters that holds my specific fandom, even if this is a twisted version of it. It's much more like the film version of The New Mutants. It's all subjects that I have fun with in fiction, and it felt like a really well bookended story that quickly delivered me through its many pages. There were some places that felt like logic jumps, especially when coordinating the long hunting and pursuit to the climax, but honestly I didn't care because I was so happy to read through the creative crises that befell our hero and his likable friends. You should read this if you like King. You should also read this if you want a fun side quest with fun characters. It's one of my favorite Stephen King books, whether it's on your radar or not. So yeah, it wasn't on my radar at all. I don't even know where I saw it or how I added it to my TBR list. I just picked it up, and I like a lot of King. I mentioned in the intro that I'm surprised that it took me so long to do a full review of one of these on this channel because I've read a lot of the books, but it's possibly because the books that I've read were early. They were before I started doing these sort of formal reviews on Goodreads. I did read the entire Dark Tower series, and the one that I love there is The Gunslinger. I've talked about that on this channel as before. The Regulators is really interesting because most people read Desperation, and it was this weird kind of book where Desperation was one side, and if you flipped it around, then you read The Regulators. So when people read Desperation, it's like a bit of an anthology in that some of the characters and some of the supernatural things that happen in one side of the book are actually carried through into different supernatural occurrences and different characters in the, I called it the B-side in this review. One thing about The Regulators is that it connects to this child protagonist thing that I'm talking about for here in the Institute. It has this young, seemingly specially gifted character that goes through all of the power and fears that they have in that story, and that is present here in the Institute as well. It's making me also think of The Shining, which I didn't read, but I ended up seeing the movie even though I have the fear of horror movies. These protagonists, these children they have common threads. There are interesting things about Stephen King child protagonists, and I think it's something to note. And I noted it when reading The Institute. Luke Ellis, this protagonist, was extremely lovable and extremely interesting, and he definitely captivates the reader to go on the journey with him. I very much like this book. I say at the end, it's one of my favorite Stephen King books. It's certainly in the top 5. I mentioned that I have been scared of horror in film, and so a lot of that may be connected to why you don't see a lot of Stephen King on my list here, but I have read a number of them, and The Institute doesn't particularly feel like horror. It feels like a supernatural story that is connected to a bit of a suspenseful and intense situation. And it really connected to that sort of twisted version of the New Mutants that we got in the film in terms of finding kids with abilities and then holding them and trying to harness them. This is a lot like that, and told in a Stephen King way, where you have a great affection for the characters and great detail about the area, the relationships, the dynamics. It was a fantastic story. So I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I definitely recommend it for people who like King because his style is very evident in this story, and In particular, if you like those stories where he is infusing these lovable traits in a child protagonist, The Institute is going to be the quintessential version of that.